You read one page of a book today. One page. You didn't work out, you didn't learn Spanish, you just read one measly page and went to bed feeling vaguely proud of yourself for reasons you couldn't fully explain. Here's the part nobody tells you. That one page repeated every single day for a year doesn't make you 365 pages better. It makes you roughly 3,678% better. Math just quietly broke the rules of common sense, and it did it without asking permission. Let's slow down because that number sounds fake, and I promise it isn't. If you improve at something by just 1% every day, you're not adding 1%, 365 times to get 365% better by the end of the year. You're multiplying. Day 1, you're at 1.01. Day 2, you take that 1.01 and improve it by another 1%. So you're at 1.01 times 1.01. Do that 365 times in a row, and you land at 1.01 to the power of 365, which comes out to roughly 37.8, not 3.78, 37.8. Improving by a laughably small amount every day compounded makes you about 37 times better by the end of the year. Your brain is currently trying to reject this sentence. Let it. It's still true. This isn't a motivational poster fabricating a nice-sounding number. It's just how exponents work, the same math your bank uses to calculate compound interest, except instead of money, the thing compounding is you. Every improvement builds on top of yesterday's improvement, which was already built on top of the day before that. It's not addition, it's stacking. Here's where it gets interesting and slightly annoying because the math cuts both ways. If you get 1% worse every day, the same multiplication applies in reverse. Skip the page, skip the walk, skip the 10 minutes of practice, and 0.99 to the power of 365 lands you at roughly 0.03. You don't end the year down 365%. You end the year at about 3% of where you started. Small negative habits don't erode you slowly and gently. Compounded daily, they gut you. The exact same math that quietly builds an empire also quietly demolishes one, and it doesn't care which direction you're pointed. Real coaches have used this on purpose, not just as a metaphor. Dave Brailsford took over British cycling in the early 2000s when the team had won basically nothing in 100 years of Olympic competition. His entire strategy was something he called the aggregation of marginal gains, break down every single factor in cycling performance and improve each one by roughly 1%. Better pillows for the rider's sleep, better hand washing to avoid illness, slightly more aerodynamic tires, slightly more comfortable saddles. Individually, every single one of these changes was almost embarrassingly small. You couldn't measure most of them with a stopwatch. Stacked together across an entire team across years, the results were not embarrassingly small. British cycling went from a team that had won a single Olympic gold medal in 76 years to dominating the Tour de France and the Olympics within less than a decade. Nobody trained twice as hard overnight. They just stopped ignoring the 1%. This is also exactly why I'll just start Monday and I'll do something huge is usually a worse strategy than I'll do something tiny today. Huge is dramatic, but huge is also exhausting, which means huge tends to happen once and then quietly stop happening. 1% is boring, which is precisely why it survives. Nobody burns out from reading a single page. Plenty of people burn out from promising themselves an hour a day, every day, forever, starting tomorrow. There's a psychological trap hiding inside all of this too. Because the daily change is so small, it feels like nothing is happening. Day 4, you don't look different. Day 40, you might not look that different either. The compounding curve stays almost flat for a deceptively long time before it visibly bends upward, which means most people quit during the flat part, right before the part where it would have actually started to show. You're not failing during that stretch. You're multiplying quietly, one barely visible percent at a time, in a math equation that hasn't finished cooking yet. It also explains why comparing yourself to someone 20 years into a habit feels so discouraging, and why that comparison is completely useless. You're not looking at their 1%. You're looking at their 1.01 to the power of 7,300 or whatever absurd number of days they've stacked up. Of course, the gap looks impossible. It was never supposed to be closed in a weekend. It was built one boring page, one boring set of push-ups, one boring 10-minute practice session at a time, and it will only ever be closed the same way, which is good news disguised as bad news, because it means you don't need permission, talent, or a dramatic origin story to start. You need a Tuesday and the willingness to do the small, unglamorous version of the thing again tomorrow. So that one page you read tonight isn't nothing. It's not nothing tomorrow either, or the day after, or on the exact day it stops feeling worth it, which is usually the day right before it would have mattered most. Read the page again tomorrow, not because tonight's page made you 0.27% smarter, technically true, but deeply unsatisfying as a pep talk, but because tomorrow's page gets multiplied on top of it, and the day after's page gets multiplied on top of that, and by the time a year quietly finishes lapping you, 1% a day doesn't add up to 365%. It adds up to 37.8 times the person who put the book down tonight and said they'd start next week.